Happy Wine Wednesday, folks. I'm Holly. I'm here by myself right now at the moment, but Kelly will be on her way soon. She's in a big storm trying to get to her hotel. So, anyway, I apologize that we're running late this evening. I'm trying something new today. This is called Simply Spiked. It's a peach flavored drink that my sister in law left at my house this weekend. So I'm going to try it for the first time and I'll let you know if it's tasty or not. I'm going to go to the chat and see if anybody is here yet. So far, I don't see anyone, but I am expecting Kelly to be here after a little bit and she can share her experience in Florida, stuff that she's seeing there. And in the meantime, I wanted to discuss six seahorses. I did see on our Facebook page, and I'm going to look on my phone so I can see it. A friend of ours, Danielle, was having a problem with one of her seahorses. And let me see if I can share it. And hopefully, some of you will show up in the chat and we can talk about it. Oh, there's Vince. Hi, Vince. So, since you just joined, Vince, I'm going to share some video of one of our friends' seahorses that she thought possibly got stuck in the wave maker. She thought its skin looked like it had been pulled off. To me, it unfortunately looks like a possible bacterial infection because I've had my seahorses have this look before. Hi, Danielle. So glad you could join us. I'm about to share your video of your seahorse so we can kind of discuss it. And you can go ahead and let us know in the chat your story of what you noticed, what's going on, and I'm going to get that ready to share so we can talk about it. And I was just saying, unfortunately, I have had similar experience with bacterial infections. So here we go. If I can make
And I don't
this.
know is her.
Yeah, we don't need to listen, but we can look and see how she's turned like almost totally white, but it's not a normal white, like a change in coloring. And you can see she's kind of splotchy. And what I noticed also is see how she's kind of floating there and not really swimming, not hitching to anything. Um, that's kind of how they get when they get internal gas bubble disease, which is usually caused by a bacterial infection. So that was my take on it. And let's see if I can go back. I have a girl of my own that has a similar issue right now, and I'll try to share her picture. I posted it on here. Here we go. There's mine. So this little girl is suffering from a bacterial infection herself, and she's likely not going to make it. But you can see how she's lost her coloring. And I've seen that before when I've lost seahorses to bacterial infections. It's almost like it's eating them from the inside out, is the best I can relate it to. So I'm going to go back now, stop sharing, and see where I can see your comments and see what people have to say. Okay, so Danielle, I see that you were seeing she was doing stuff yesterday. She was kind of being herself, and you think she ate. Looks like maybe she was still eating. Now, I did have a seahorse that I lost to this disease that ate until the very last. He kept eating, but his body started developing like holes, and like it got like white splotchy, kind of like she looked. And I think it affects them differently depending on the individual, might be part of it. But I have to be honest with you, I've never seen one turn that quickly or get that sick that quickly. So I don't know for sure that I'm on the right track. That's why I'm hoping some of the people more expert than me can jump in and give you their take on it. So I see there's Vince. So he's kind of agreeing with me. And I'm sure once Kelly gets here, she'll probably have more to say about that too. I wish Cheryl could have joined us because I learned most of what I know about the seahorse diseases and bacterial infections from Cheryl. And she's talked about there's something they get called Vibrio that I don't totally understand, but I think in people it's actually a flesh eating disease. So I'm wondering if that's it, if it affects the seahorses that way. And maybe Vince will know a little about that. Um, but my understanding is they get bacterial infections from high organics in their water. Now, what's causing the high organics, you would have to investigate to see what's going on. It could be your filtration is not good enough. Could be you need to do bigger water changes. Maybe not all the uneaten food was removed from the tank and she ate some that was contaminated with bacteria, all kinds of things. But I've lost seahorses to bacterial infections many times, and I've had other seahorses in the tank live and be perfectly fine. Like my seahorse Dandy, I've lost tank mates previous to him due to bacterial infections and IgBD, and he's never had it. So it's a tough situation. It really comes down to controlling the organics in your tank. And I think, we do the best we can, but sometimes stuff still happens or can get away from us. And I see Vince saying, "Well, I don't see a seahorse lose its skin like that and still be alive." And like I was saying, I don't see the equipment in your tank pulling the skin off the seahorse. Usually what will happen is a tail will get stuck, something like that. I don't think they can have their skin sucked off. And that's part of why I think this is a disease issue, a sickness, and not a mechanical injury of any kind. I think she was sick, and maybe she's been sick for a while and you didn't notice. Or in some cases, I've never had any develop that quickly the way yours did, but I'm not saying that can't happen. I don't have enough experience to know. So hopefully some folks with more experience will will jump in later and kind of answer some of these questions for us. Like you could see the picture I shared of mine. She's been slowly turning that color, and I've had her in a hospital tank with antibiotics for 11 days. She was on Diamox for 6 days at the beginning of the treatment. That stopped her from being floaty, but she hasn't improved with the antibiotics. And I finally chose to take her off the antibiotics and let her pass naturally. I haven't had any of them survive in that case from that illness. So it's tough to go through, and I really feel for you. And then I see that you say that everyone else is doing okay in the tank. So I would just, do a little personal detective work in your mind and think what may have happened to cause that as far as creating high organics in the tank. I think is the direction you need to be looking. You might want to do a bigger water change, or if you haven't, if you're due, change the water now, do a big water change. See if any of your equipment or decorations are trapping uneaten food. That happened to me. I had uneaten food was getting trapped in some of my equipment. In my case, it was one of the overflow boxes. The uneaten mysis that went into that overflow box ended up stuck up in the top of it, not going through the system. Um, Decorations, sometimes in your tank, stuff will get stuck under there and you miss it when you're siphoning. Things like that. Um, And then also, Vince asks a good question. What's the temperature in your tank? If it's warm, bacteria grows faster. So that's one of the reasons we keep our tanks below 74 degrees, try to. So, have you had any temperature spikes at all? Um, Bacteria grows faster in that case, so that could have contributed. And then I see the food particle problem could be a possibility. I'll tell you, in my case, I'm pretty sure that's usually what it is. And you don't always see the results of that right away. Honestly, it can be months before they show symptoms. Like the seahorse that I have sick right now, I'm pretty sure is from an incident a few months back when I had the sump being cleaned out, and it blew a bunch of crap into my main tank. And the seahorses were in there, and who knows if maybe she saw a particle fly by and ate it and it made her sick, or just taking in the water. And the other ones, yeah, like in your case, the other ones seem fine, but I don't know. Are they going to get sick? Are they not? Maybe. I just try to do the best I can going forward, but stuff happens. And yeah, so 70 degrees, 72, I see right under 72. You're in the ballpark. You know, nothing wrong with that temperature. I try to keep my tanks right about 70, a little under 68, 70. They'll get up to 73 sometimes in summer before the chiller's able to control it. But yeah, your temperature's fine. Most likely it was a problem with high organics, but you know, like I said, it may have been like a one-time thing. You know, so I wouldn't panic, but just take a good look at your system, like I said, and see, is food getting trapped somewhere? Is something about your filtration not quite up to par? Or there's too many seahorses maybe in the tank right now. I know you're raising juveniles, which is pretty cool. I know you have a lot of them right now, and that's awesome. But if you have extra ones in the tank maybe that you didn't have before, that could contribute. All kinds of things. So just kind of think about it, but it usually does just come down to high organics for whatever reason, for whatever caused that. And then you just have to do your best to fight that going forward. And yeah, yeah, and honestly, you know, like I shared my picture of mine that's turning that color. I've seen them turn, but it happens gradually over a long time, not suddenly like that. So I don't know if that's an individual thing with her. It's just hasn't been my experience, but that is kind of the look they get as they get to the point, you know, when unfortunately they're nearing the end. So, like I told you earlier, I'm really sorry that you had to go through that. That's tough, and it's really hard to lose your babies, especially like you said, the adults, you know, that you've had for a while and you've developed, you know, a little relationship with them. It's hard to see them go. So I'm so sorry for your loss. And you're very welcome that I'm trying to help you. I wish I could do more or knew more. And, you know, if you can hang out longer, I know Kelly will be here eventually. She's stuck in a huge storm in Florida right now and trying to get to her hotel. So once she gets settled, she'll come join us. And I, yeah, thanks for the input, Vince, because I do have that feeling about some of the, and that's why I think I've lost some and not others that were in the same conditions, living in the same tank, and you lose one or two, but not the others. Or, you know, time passes and then they develop something because I've lost mine now and then. I'll lose one maybe every 6 months, you know, a long time in between. So I don't lose them all at once, but I don't know if the same issue, the same problem caused me to lose others later down the line. Like maybe they were already sick and I couldn't tell, and it just took longer for the disease to develop. Or some of them might have to be exposed multiple times. I don't really know. So so hopefully at some point, you know, we'll figure some of these things out. But I know one of the things Cheryl always told me was that a lot of times they have something that would take a pathology report to find out. You'd have to have them do an autopsy per se on the seahorse to find out what pathogens they had, what it was that killed them exactly. There's all kinds of things, and so we may never know, um, unless you got a university or someone to examine the deceased seahorse and say, well, it was this, it was such and such bacteria. Then you would know specifically what it was, but most of us do not have those resources, unfortunately. All right, I'm going to try a sip of this now, and I'll let you know if this is good. I'm normally not a peach person. It's really sweet. I think it's decent. It's good. I think if you like peach flavors, you'd probably really like this. I think it's all right, but I'm not a huge peach person, so it's not one of my favorite flavors. But for what it is, it's good. So I don't know. Let me see if there's anything else I can find to talk about on our chat, because I don't have much this week. Oh, I can share my healthy seahorse. Let me see. I can go back and find some stuff to share. So here we go. So, what I'm going to share with you is this is my big healthy seahorse, Sadie. And this was funny because the reason she's coming up close to look at me is because she was curious. I decided to try and measure her. So I went in the other room and I got my little tiny measuring tape. It's like a construction style one, the kind where you pull it out. So I had brought that in and I was trying to hold it next to the tank and kind of next to her just to see what her size was. And she saw it, and I don't know if she thought it might have to do with food, but she was curious about it. So she came swimming right over to check it out. And I figured out she's like between 7 and 8 inches if I were to stretch her out. And so she's probably my biggest seahorse. I think Dandy's close. I think he's like a good 7 inches, maybe not quite as long as her, but very, very close. And he is actually older. So that's Sadie. And now I'm back. So let's see if anybody else has joined us. Yeah, she is a big girl. She's my biggest one right now. And her coloring varies from kind of a beige to bright yellow. Sometimes she likes to be creamy, almost white, but kind of like a dirty white color. But also in that video, I had on the sunset lighting. And the sunset lighting will make her look a lot of times more yellow than she actually is. So that's something to keep in mind with your seahorses. If you want to take pictures and you want them to look, more yellow or more a certain color, you can adjust your tank lighting. Um, it'll change their color. So that's one way you can do that. Uh, Hi, Zen Ginger. Sorry. Yeah, we started late tonight because actually Kelly's driving right now. She is in Florida in a big storm trying to get to her hotel because she wanted to go live from Florida. She's on vacation and she has stuff, she wants to share with us there, but running late, got in a big storm and hasn't checked into her hotel yet. She probably will be any time now. So we delayed the time, and really you haven't missed too much. We were talking about seahorse diseases and specifically bacterial infections. Danielle is with us, and she had a seahorse that she unfortunately lost today that looked like she had the same thing that one of my seahorses is going through right now, which is an internal bacterial infection. And it's unfortunately a common thing with seahorses. It's in my experience, it's the main reason I've lost them, if not the only reason. They're very sensitive to high organics in the tank. So that's how you prevent bacterial infections, is by doing everything you can to keep down the organics in your tank. Unfortunately, we were discussing stuff happens, and sometimes you'll lose one or two to that. So we do all we can, but we're only human and we don't understand everything about the seahorses and their diseases and immune systems. But that's been, in my case, the biggest reason that I've had losses is due to bacterial infections, which is caused by high organics in the tank. So that's all you missed. We were just discussing that. Hope you're doing well. And it'd be great if you had some questions for us or something you'd like me to discuss specifically, because I'm not much of a talker and I don't have much of an audience right now. So if you guys have stuff you want to talk about or you want me to talk about or answer questions, that would be great. That'd really help me out till Kelly gets here, because she's better at running the show than I am. So in the meantime, we can chat about whatever you guys really want to know about. So have at it. I'm just looking to see if I have other stuff to share while we're here. I'm going to go back to my own page. I might have some funny videos and things I can find to show you. Oh, I just thought of something. See if I can find it. Oh, here we go. All right, here we go. Let's see if anybody has anything. I'm going to share this real quick. You guys remember last week I was talking about Dandy got scratched up on his sand, and I removed the sand from the area that he swims through. So just wanted to show you guys all his scrapes are gone now. This was the side of him. Remember, he had scrapes like here and on the side of his pouch, like right here. He's completely healed now. So he's fine. And let me go back and what folks want to talk about here. All right, so Danielle's asking, now that she lost the one seahorse, how long should we wait to add another female? And really, you're probably okay now. You might want to wait for a bit and see if anybody else gets sick. If you have other seahorses in the tank already, so they're not alone, nobody's alone. You're just wanting another female. I might want to wait a couple weeks and see if the other seahorse or seahorses get sick. Um, it's hard to say. Like I said, I can't say for sure that was what was wrong with her. So you might want to wait a bit and just see if anything else, comes up. If any other seahorse has a problem, or if you figure out maybe it was something else. Um, and let's see. I think Zen Ginger has a question. Would you say there's one major factor to bacterial infections? An example, overfeeding, not enough maintenance, or detritus buildup on decorations or substrate, if any? I'll say, in my experience, it's probably the uneaten food remaining in the system somehow. And you weren't here earlier, so you kind of missed the conversation about it. But what I was telling Danielle to look for is food getting trapped in or under something. Is it getting trapped in part of your system somewhere? Like I have a problem with it getting trapped in my overflow boxes, I found out because of the way they're designed. Sometimes it could be a decoration or the rocks in your tank. The food has a way of getting in stuff and under stuff. So you want to check your tank, watch what happens. Having good flow helps. Like Cheryl will tell you, she has power heads and things that directed at problem areas in her tank where the food would tend to collect, to blow it out, and get it circulating. So in my experience, the problem is usually uneaten food remaining in the system for some reason. Overfeeding can contribute, but you can overfeed and then remove it all. So it's not that per se, it's that the food is staying in the tank somewhere, somehow. Um, for some for some people, it might be the not enough maintenance. They're not changing the water often enough or as much as they need to. So there's different causes, but usually the biggest one in my personal experience is uneaten food remaining in the system somehow for whatever reason, because it got trapped somewhere somehow. So so when we have Bonnie asking if there's any live coral in the tank, and that's something to consider too. Could anything, have stung your girl Danielle? Do you have anything in the tank? I looking at your video, I didn't see anything really like that, but maybe you can tell us, is there anything? Okay, and I see you're answering that. So you've got one male from Hawaii, Ocean Rider, is in the tank, and a few fish. And you have, though, a lot of juveniles, though, don't you? That you're raising? Because what I've done, like when I lost my male that was breeding, I took Sadie, who was one of my juveniles, and put her in the tank to take his place. Along with I had my male Scrappy Doo, who was a tiny thing at the time, but I sold the rest of them. So they were the only two that I had left, and I moved them into that tank when I lost the others. So you might want to move if you have that capability and you're not selling all the juveniles. Maybe you want to keep some, maybe add one of those to the tank. And thanks. I see you're saying the seahorses are beautiful. And yeah, Dandy is a champ for sure. I don't know what it is with Dandy, but we were discussing different seahorses have different immune systems. They have different strengths, I think, to, resistance for certain things. And although Dandy has some kind of problem with his motor skills, I don't know what caused it. I don't know why, but he has never gotten sick. He's been exposed to all kinds of things in that tank. I've lost other seahorses to bacterial infections in that tank, and he has never had one. I've never had any other kind of problems with him. And yeah, when he gets scraped up, and I see, Zen Ginger's talking about that, body damage, scrapes, cuts, things like that. He heals quickly. When he'll get scraped because of the way he swims, like I said, he has problems getting around. So, especially sand scrapes him up. That's partly why that tank is almost all bare bottom, is because he was scraping himself on the sand. And I don't have any rocks in that tank either. But, when he gets scraped, I just make sure keep the water clean, and he always heals. He heals fairly quickly. So Danielle says they have a Kenya and two purple laced gorgonians. And I think those are, I don't keep gorgonians myself, but I think those are seahorse safe, I imagine. So I don't see that causing a problem with your female. I honestly think most likely it was some kind of infection. Why it came on so quickly like that, I don't know. And maybe Kelly will have something to say about that when she comes on later. Or if not, Ray and Cheryl aren't here tonight, but can ask them later, and they have more experience, with disease in the seahorses, so they may have something to say about it. They have a lot more experience than I do, so we'll see. And then so Danielle says there's separate tanks. Oh, Vince's grandbabies. That's cool. Yeah, so your seahorses came from Vince, sounds like. Very cool. And so yeah, you might want to put one of those in the tank to take her place. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to see what else I can see in the comments. Make sure I'm not missing anything. And there's Fish Family. Hi, and thanks for supporting the channel. It's always good to see you here sharing. And Zen Ginger, you're looking to get Gorgonians. They are very cool. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having some, but I'm at a point where I'm not going to add anything more at this point. I've had my display tank's been up 5 years now. My oldest Seahorse is going on 5 years. I've had a couple years of raising babies. I've taken care of these two tanks. I have the ones I raised. Some of them are left in one tank, in the tiki tank, I call it. And then I have a couple in my display tank, but they are sweet little creatures, so much personality, and they make me so happy watching them. But honestly, I haven't had a vacation since I've had them. so, so after these ones are gone, I think I'll probably take a break and actually go do some stuff and then maybe go back to seahorses. But I don't think I'm going to add anything. So purple candelabra, supposedly seahorse safe. Yeah, and I think the ones that are marketed as seahorse safe, especially if you get them like from Melissa's Seahorse Savvy, yeah, they're meant to be with seahorses. So you're fine with that. Oh, and Andrea has a ton of different leather corals and gorgonians. All are safe and don't sting. Awesome. You guys need to come share your tanks sometime or share some pictures so we can share and look at them. So we can look at something besides my tanks. Since I don't have any other pictures to share, let me see if I could find some more to share with you. Okay. So Zen Ginger says, I was told to stay away from any of the non photosynthetic gorgs, though, as coral foods and supplements tend to foul the water faster and are way more work. Yeah, I think that would be something to keep in mind too, especially when we know that high organics in our tank is the cause of most of our seahorse problems, at least has been in my experience. So I think anything that adds a lot of organics to the tank, such as coral food and stuff, that would be something you probably want to stay away from. I'm going to see if I can find some more pictures to share. And hopefully Kelly will show up soon. Let's see. You guys can chat while I'm looking, and then I'll be back to see what you said because I can't see what you're saying when I'm looking for pictures. Da-da. Maybe I can find an album. All right, let's see. Here we go. Let me go back and see what y'all are saying, and then I can share pictures of Sadie if nothing else. So let's see. Okay, so Andrea says I keep a couple of NPS gorgs and feed live Fido from Dinkins daily only. They are thriving. Very cool. Oh, so Zen wants to know, Andrea, how long have you been keeping saltwater tanks, though? Because she's new and starting with seahorses, and she's afraid she'll kill them if she pushes too many boundaries. Don't be scared. Just I think probably keep it simple, like you say at first, and add stuff. Little at a time. And they do take time. Probably the corals, I imagine you're talking about, Vince. Danielle has a clam recently added and been giving coral food to feed it once a week. Okay, maybe somebody else can jump in on that because I don't know anything about clams and their food. So, could that have possibly been what caused her seahorse to take ill like that so fast? I am not familiar with that. If their food was polluting the water, yeah, if the water quality went down because of the clam food, that could be it. I would imagine. And Bonnie says she's always afraid to add live plants or corals as they can carry pests. Yeah, that is something to think about too. I don't really deal with plants, like I said, or corals. Everything I use now is artificial. But people that do, I know normally they'll quarantine those things first or else obtain them from an aquaculture place where they aren't exposed to anything else. So they're not wild caught or propagated. They come from, and they're usually guaranteed that way. If you get them that way, they'll say that. So let me see what else I see in the comments. Okay, Andrea says seahorses were her first salt tank 2.5 years ago. Started with 65-gallon and upgraded to 150-gallon this year. And I'm similar to Andrea. Seahorses were actually pretty much my first saltwater fish. I had many years ago, way back, because I'm so old, my first seahorses were back in 1989. And back then, the way you were told to cycle a tank was that you had to put a disposable fish in it, a fish that you expected to die to get the cycling started. So I had a couple blue damsels in the tank to get it cycling. And then after it was cycling, I added seahorses. That tank, oh, I want to say it wasn't big enough for seahorses either. It was a 20-gallon. And I imagine the seahorses I got were erectus, but they were sold to me just as seahorses. And they were big. They were good, probably size of Sadie, I would say. So I imagine they were most likely wild caught I had a tank with an under gravel filter because that was the thing back then, and a power head. And the funny thing was at that time they said seahorses didn't like flow. You needed to have no flow in your tank. But I did because that just happened to be the equipment that I had, and the seahorses loved that power head. They would they would fight over it. Like one would hang in front of it, be hanging on, and the other one would come and grab that seahorse by the neck and yank him off of there. So already they were showing me that they did like flow. But those were my first seahorse, my first tank. Obviously, it didn't go well because I wasn't doing it right. Didn't have the knowledge that I do now. The seahorses I have now, I set up the first tank, the 55-gallon, 5 years ago, almost to the day, because it's coming up in my Facebook memories. And I set it up with live rock, crushed coral, and no sump. I had, well, I did have a little sump. It was like 5 gallon. You couldn't really call it a sump, but it had come with the tank. It had been a freshwater tank before and had a trickle filter sump type thing. So I had that. And I had a tiny hang on back skimmer. So I started out wrong with not the right equipment that I needed, not the right substrate, and changed things as I went along. Eventually ended up going all artificial because it's easier for me to keep things clean and maintain the tanks that way. So so that was my start. And let's see. Oh, and Andrea's saying the clam could have clamped onto the seahorse if she drifted on top of it. Now, I would think, though, that the clam would hurt the seahorse. Oh, where's my phone? I think Andrea's messaging me. Oh, cool. Andrea sent a video of her tank for the group. Okay, so I'll go see if I can find it. But in the meantime, let's somebody discuss the clam. What happens if a clam clamps onto a seahorse? Wouldn't there be a physical injury, or do you think it just scared it? And Bonnie has something to say about that. I've read that clams can pinch the seahorse and cause a wound. That's what I would think. So I would think rather than seeing her just be totally white, I would think that she'd be hurt, like her tail or something would be hurt. So, and Vince is still thinking along the lines of a bacterial infection, likely. So, as far as the clam food polluting the water, he says it would depend on the food and amount you feed. They filter feed and light, so it would be dense in your system and what type of bioload it can handle. So, kind of depending on your system. I'm going to go, while you guys are having that discussion, let's find Andrea's picture. Oh, here we go. Okay. So, I am going to share real quick and I'm going to let Kelly in here. Oh, I have to let Kelly in, I guess, before I share. So let me let Kelly in. Kelly, are you there? Andrea's sharing her tank. So let me turn that on and you can talk while I'm sharing Andrea's tank and tell us about your journey.
Go ahead and share Andrea's tank. I'll watch that.
I'm doing that. I think you can talk at the same time, right?
Yeah. Well, all I want to do is apologize, everybody. It's been the worst trip ever. I won't go into details, but bottom line is I'm finally here and I apologize for being late. That's it. Okay. So what are we looking at, Holly? Tell me.
Yeah, so I was just encouraging everybody to share pictures of their tank and talk about their stuff because I run out of stuff to talk about.
Sure.
So Andrea volunteered to share her tank. So this is Andrea's tank.
Love it.
And
Gorgeous.
yeah, she just upgraded to 150 gallon. But we were all talking about how we got our start with seahorses and saltwater tank. And it's sounding like the most of us seahorses were actually how we got into saltwater tanks. It was our first. So that's interesting. And thanks for sharing, Andrea. That's gorgeous.
Now, wait, is this seahorses? This tank?
Yes,
Oh
yes.
my gosh, that's
Yeah.
so cool. I love that. I mean, I just see, and I know a lot of us have gone to artificial stuff, but I really like when it has like, even if it's not real rock, like, just the structures and the scape. I love that. I always do that for my
Yeah. Isn't that gorgeous?
Yes.
So our main thing we've been talking about tonight, honestly, let me go back. Here we go. Okay, so we have Danielle here with us tonight who had a tragic day. She lost one of her seahorses when she first saw it today. The seahorse was almost completely white, and she thought that maybe its skin had got sucked off in one of her wave makers or something.
Okay.
And looking at it, she posted it on our page. While I'm talking, I'll try to find it so you can watch the video.
Okay.
So anyway, looking at it, what I noticed, it reminded me of
I don't
what
even have
I
flash, you guys, so I'm really letting it rip. Go ahead, Holly. Reminded you
okay,
of what?
so it reminded me of my seahorses, how they look when they get a bad bacterial infection, that white splotchiness.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, but I'd never seen one this severe or heard of it happening that fast.
Right.
So
So it was fine
we've
yesterday.
been discussing it. I'm going to share now so you can watch the video.
Thanks.
So here we go. See if I can make it.
What the fuck is happening?
Oh,
But look.
sorry about the language.
That's okay.
Yeah, but so she was in shock. And what
Yeah.
I noticed is her girl is kind of floaty, not swimming.
Okay.
And so that tells me IgBD bacterial infection likely is what I'm thinking. And I shared, let me see, underneath
Real quick.
that, I have a horse that's looking similar, the one I have in the hospital or had in the, see what I'm talking about? And that's what led me to think that.
So, couple quick questions. How long did she have the seahorse before this happened?
I think a couple years, I bet. Let's see.
Before you,
She's in our chat, so she'll probably say in a
before
minute.
you stop sharing, show the video one more time, please.
Okay.
And I'm going to look it up too on the Facebook to see if I can see it a little clearer.
I just had.
And she said she was just like this morning. Like she got white. She wasn't white yesterday. I think she's all of a sudden.
The other thing I'm noticing is the tail. Was the tail completely white like that? Because one of the things, I mean, that's like an odd looking whiteness on the tail, and I'm
Uh,
just wondering if maybe there was an injury or something. I don't know. But I know what you're saying about IGBD. Okay, she had him 8 months before this happened. Okay. Very strange. I'm actually going into the group to like see it more clearly too. But yeah, okay. Oh yeah.
so we've been discussing it, and I think Vince kind of thought the same as me. I
Okay.
don't have Cheryl or Ray here to
Oh,
run by you know their experience in that kind. So I don't know for sure. My feeling is that it's infection based, you know,
yep.
likely bacterial infection, but I've never seen that happen so suddenly. Like mine, it's a slow process for them to turn that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Can they go that quick?
I mean, I've never seen it go that quick, and that's why I'm just jumping in, guys, and I'm not an expert either. We can only go based on our past opinions. I sure do wish Cheryl and I'm sorry, yeah, Cheryl and Ray were here because they've had a few more experiences than us, and I will have them take a look at this and maybe comment next week. But to me, I still keep going to the tail because the very tip of the tail, like
It's
it's
dark.
not, I'm sorry.
The tip of the tail is dark.
Right.
Yeah.
So it can't be, I can't even think, I can't remember the name of it.
Tail
Where
rot.
tail rot. Yes. Cause
Hmm.
I was jumping towards tail rot, but then I see the tip is not white. And because of the odd swimming, look at how she's not curling her tail at all.
See, mine's doing that. The one that I'm losing to a bacterial infection, that's what happened to her when she first started getting floaty. Remember,
Okay.
I said she wasn't hitching like normal and she wasn't going to her normal spots. She was going higher up in the tank and not hitching, though, hanging out because her body was floaty.
Right. Well,
And
no,
eventually,
hey,
then she did start, and what she'd do is exactly what this seahorse is doing. She
mm-hmm.
wouldn't really swim. She just kind of flowed along, like
Yeah.
floating whatever carrier wherever.
Well,
And
that,
now, unfortunately, I mean, I had her in the hospital for 11 days with
mhm,
antibiotics, and she's not going to make it. You know, I'm sure. You know,
right.
unfortunately, but she's turning. Her body's turning that white, but
Okay.
it's
Sorry.
happening slowly over time. It's not. She's all of a sudden white. I've never.
Did I lose? What the hell? Okay, hang on.
I hear you just fine.
Okay, sorry. No, I'm not even gonna say the name. The the
I
Mac.
I'm gonna I'm gonna stop sharing so I can go back and see.
Okay, no, that's okay. What happened to me just now is that my computer thought I was talking to it instead of you guys. So
Oh,
sorry.
it's trying to do stuff for you.
It started talking back, and I was like, no, wait. So again, like, unfortunately, I don't have any like genius things to add to what you've said. What you've said has makes sense to me because if they've got an internal infection and they're becoming bloated and floaty, then that makes sense that they wouldn't curl their tail either because they're
Mm,
getting
yeah.
like think about like if you're I mean, I don't know if you're any guys are old like me, but like if my legs get full of fluid,
Mhm,
then I don't like bending them as much and they're
mhm,
uncomfortable and heavy and whatever. So what you're saying makes sense to me.
mhm.
And unfortunately, the internal is so hard to treat. It just is. And
Yeah.
the thing that I do want to ask though, so her other seahorse is fine?
The other seahorses are fine.
There's
Uh,
Lizzie.
we were talking about, you know, high organics is usually the cause
Mm-hmm.
of the bacterial. And so you know, think about what could have been. Is there stuff in your tank that can trap uneaten food? Is there, you know, things like that? She's thinking that may be part of it. That may have contributed. We just before you arrived, she has a clam in the
Okay.
tank that she's been feeding. And is it possible that the clam food is polluting the tank? Here comes Ray. I'm going to let Ray in. Hi,
Good.
Ray.
Hi, Ray.
We're happy to see you.
Just a second, I get there. Had to shut off the YouTube volume.
We've got a crisis, and we don't have as much experience with it as you usually do. I would say too, Holly, with the clam in the tank, I'm and we'll get Ray's thoughts, but I just keep feeling like usually these things start occurring either because of high organics, like you said, but when it's just one of them,
Mhm.
I often look for like injury or something like that. Ray, what are your thoughts? Have you watched it all yet?
No, I was busy watching a hockey game.
Oh, well, shoot. Well, we're glad
That's
you jumped in.
the first game of the year and had to be on a Wednesday night.
Eh, I was very, very late myself, Ray, because I'm in Florida and it's storming and terrible. So we had a hard time getting here. But anyways, Holly, can you share it one more time for Ray? Just one more time.
Yeah. And then here's a comment from Andrea too. She feels like the clam may have grabbed the seahorse, and the shock or stress of that experience could have
I was
killed.
wondering that myself. I've
So
had
let me
What's
share.
the plan?
clam.
Oh, it says clan.
Well, she meant clam.
Oh, she means clam. Just
Yeah.
Yeah, if the clam clamps down on it, the clam would stay shut because it
Okay.
senses the tail in there. They don't shut down and then release.
Okay.
Okay. All right, good to know. Thank you. Thanks for being here, Ray. So
Yes.
a little bit of backstory then before I share this. So since you didn't see it earlier, so Danielle is with
I
us.
saw this post on
True.
Facebook.
Okay.
Okay, so you did see it. So
I
what
didn't pay a lot of attention to it because I thought there was a lot of people helping her out already.
Well,
Sure.
we're not expert though. So let me show it and then you can tell us what you think. How about that?
Sounds good. So, Ray, the seahorse was dark. She's had it for 8 months, and then she wakes up and it looks like this, all white, except for little spots of dark, kind of floating, not hitching. If you look at the tail, she looks bloated, and she was dark yesterday. Now she's all white. Have you ever seen a seahorse, because of bacterial or otherwise, turn that quickly? Go down, go bad so quick.
Well, there are times when people have thought it was quick and weren't really observing the seahorse well enough to know it had already started earlier.
Well, and that's always a possibility. I know when mine got a bacterial infection, they didn't have symptoms for a few months after my temperature spike, and then all of a sudden they started getting like black spots on them, and then they started getting the skin peely look where the skin was peeling off. And that's another question: is this white area on the seahorse? Does it look like it's missing skin? Is that what she said?
Yeah,
I don't,
she was afraid. She was thinking it may have got stuck in the wave maker or something and the skin sucked off, but I don't see that as a
it can't
possibility
suck
of
the skin
happening.
off.
Yeah, no.
There's no way it could suck the skin off.
Right. But what I was thinking, Ray, is because when my seahorses got their bacterial infection, it was literally the skin eating infection. That's what happened to them. Their skin started like being missing. Just, and I can't remember what that's called. I do remember how I treated it, but we're just kind of trying to figure out how
First off, it sure would be nice if people would turn the blue lights off before they take their damn pictures.
Well, I get it, Ray, but she was freaking out. You know, she was upset. So yes,
Mhm.
everybody turn your blues off when you take the videos and pictures. But I completely understand why that wasn't
Yeah.
the first thing in her head. But so basically, you know, this is a sad situation, and really what she wants and what we want is to investigate possibly what could have happened, of course, but we can't always figure that out. But it's like what to do now. And I think, Ray, you would agree the very first thing to do is pull that seahorse and put it in a hospital tank, right?
Yep.
Well,
Okay.
it passed away though. She lost it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I missed that part.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, the
Ray,
first thing I do now is complete water change on the tank, or at least as close to a complete as she can do.
agree.
Mhm.
If it is a bacterial infection, which I suspect it is, and I suspect it started earlier, and in my earlier years, I had times where I didn't pick up on something
Absolutely.
uh, fast enough, and then when I did really start paying attention to it, it was too late. And I don't think I'm the only one that's had that
No,
problem.
I just want to
No,
throw in
I
quick.
have that right now, like
I
I was
want,
said
well,
earlier.
I want to throw in real quick. A lot of times when a seahorse isn't feeling good, right, and they're starting down that path where they're getting ill or whatever, they hide from you. And if you have other seahorses in the tank, it's really
You don't
easy to
notice.
not. So nobody's criticizing here because we've all had this to happen.
Mhm.
But go on. Sorry.
The other thing that I need to explain, and I mentioned this other times, is that seahorses are like people. There are some that have a better immune system. They're much more capable of dealing off with disease, with infections, and so on. And there are some people who seem to never get sick. There are people that are always sick. There are all the people that are in between are the big mass of them. Now with seahorses, though, you don't have very many that are really resistant. You
Right.
have an awful lot that have virtually no resistance, and the ones that are in between are going to fall closer to the bad end rather than the good end. That's just a fact that we've learned over the decades.
Mhm.
And in this case here, I suspect it is a bacterial infection. The water quality is compromised, and the reason this one has come down with it is because its particular immune system just was not as capable as the other seahorses to handle it. So now the thing is to try and catch the problem and fix it before the others come down with it, or at least minimize what they come down with so it's at a stage where you can still treat it. And
Agree.
hopefully she's somewhere where she can get medications if it does happen again.
Mhm.
Sure.
But the number one thing is to get that water quality changed. And even if I'm wrong, it's not going to hurt having a massive water change.
Exactly.
Just make sure you're going to have the pH basically the same, temperature the same if possible,
Mhm.
specific gravity. The closer you can get conditions to the tank existing water, then that easier it is to make that change. At the same time,
I love your point, Ray, that a big water change isn't going to hurt.
Yep.
And
while
it's
it's not a hospital tank, I would also consider slowly dropping the temperature somehow if it's possible.
I like that.
Mhm.
Just uh, it's just another move that you can make to make it harder for if it is a bacterial problem,
Mhm.
then the lowered temperature, if she can get it down to 68 degrees, it's going to be much better for the seahorses to resist.
Oh, and
Yeah,
it looks like she says she did a huge water change and she's ordering something online for antibiotics. That
right. When back when I
and
had
also she does have, I don't know if we talked about this earlier because I seen pictures of them. They're so cute. She has 130 juveniles that
oh
she's
my
raised that are adorable. They're not
awesome.
they're in different tanks. They're not
Sure,
in this tank,
sure.
but
And was this female the mother? I'm just curious. Do we know?
yeah, me too.
So
Yeah,
what
Danielle, is that the mom of your babies, or was she the mom of your babies? I'm sure
because
she'll
there's some
answer.
things that can happen with that, but
Mhm.
I completely agree with Ray. He covered it well. Lowering the temperature, people don't always think about that, but it does. It makes it so much harder for the seahorses. Well, what it does is the bacteria can't grow as fast, right, at the
Yeah.
colder temperatures. So
Mhm.
whatever's going on in the tank can't, take over and hurt those seahorses as quickly or as much when the temp's lower. So totally agree with that.
So
No, it
no,
wasn't
it's
mom.
not.
Okay. All right. Well, we're just fishing for anything here. But
Well,
I would go ahead.
um, Daniel, or is it Danielle?
Mhm.
Danielle.
Danielle, um, could you tell me what percentage is this huge water change? And do you have the capability of lowering the temperature?
So yeah, he's asking you to answer, obviously.
So she will
Um,
shortly.
yeah.
Bonnie and Clyde passed away after an algae treatment. That was their parents.
Oh,
And
bummer.
Bonnie and Clyde were from Vince, I think, if I
Oh,
remember right.
gotcha. Okay. Well, and it sounds like she knows what happened there.
Mhm.
But yeah, bacterial infections are the worst, and especially if they're floating and we think that it's internal gas bubble disease. That's just nobody understands that. Like not
Another,
even the, go ahead.
another thing that I'm thinking here from her post there, passed away after an algae treatment.
Hmm.
That tells me the tank had an algae problem and having to be treated. That's an indication also that the water quality isn't where it needed to be. And while it was in the past, it may be that it's gradually gotten worse because she's unable to test for things like dissolved organics, which is the major problem with seahorses. So she wouldn't know that it's gradually getting worse. Uh,
Sure. Now, I
I,
think it's set at different tanks, though. Just from what I'm gathering, I think that Bonnie and Clyde were in a different tank than this one. I don't know that. Maybe
yeah,
she know. But go ahead, Ray.
okay. Well, then the other thought is that, and I'm just using some conjecturing bit here. Um, if she was unable to control that algae, it probably had other bacterial problems developing too. But if she's not aware of it at that time, if somebody hasn't explained to her properly so that she can know, then the other tank, if there is another tank, could be kept the same way
Sure.
and finally develop things. It's not that she has done something wrong.
No.
She hasn't known that this problem exists, and we have no test kits that we can test for this dissolved organics. Now,
Right.
some experts are not exactly sold that it's the dissolved organics, but we know for a fact that if the dissolved organics get out of hand, then it's either the dissolved organics or it's something that goes along with the uh, increasing dissolved organics that is causing the problem.
Sure. And yeah, no, he just said it all right. And I was curious actually because I know we just saw, a quick glimpse of the tank. Do you have a skimmer on the tank? I'm just curious because one of the things that, that the seahorse people always recommend right away is to have a skimmer on a seahorse tank because it just helps so much with stuff we can't see, right? It's not perfect. It doesn't fix everything, but I'm just curious if you have a skimmer. And got the Ocean Rider pair about 8
Yeah,
months.
so she said she lowered her temp and did a 65% water change. And we had talked about the temperature earlier at 70 degrees, she says.
Gotcha.
It's
Huh.
Okay, Bonnie Eden, I have to comment here. You can have bottom dwellers You can have all sorts of things, what's considered cleanup crew, but the cleanup crew also create their own waste material. And that waste material has been refined somewhat now when it passes through their system. So it's much easier to disintegrate into the water column, again, causing the bad dissolved organic levels.
Sure. And I liked Ray explains things very well and scientifically. So I always like to dumb it down a little bit for people like me. So just to reiterate what he just said, I think of it as like I like to use an algae scrubber in one of my bigger Seahorse tanks. But the reason that works is because I'm harvesting and taking out the algae every week, right? So if you have cleanup crew that are in the tank, they might be eating and pooping it, but it's still in the tank, right? It's like if you had a sock that you never changed. It's not really helping you if you don't pull it out and change it because the stuff's still sitting in the water. It's still
It's
affecting the
still
water.
contributing to the organics in the
Yeah,
tank.
right.
Okay, now,
And
another comment to make on this,
yes,
skimmer's been messing up. It's an all-in-one. I've never seen an all-in-one that had a skimmer that was worth a darn for Seahorse tanks.
and I have an all-in-one right now, and I was trying to prove that you could do Seahorses in an all-in-one, and I'm doing it, but it's not been easy.
Yeah.
They had told me, and I had to up my water change game because I was used to big tanks with sumps and skimmers, and I was trying to do it the same way, right? By relying on an all-in-one tank skimmer, which is not as good and never will be. And I had all the equipment in the all-in-one, but it wasn't good enough because it just wasn't. So I've had to change my game up and do a lot larger, a lot more often water changes. And like I'm a lot more careful when I feed them that nothing gets scattered anywhere and gets to rot and all that stuff. So, it's just about the learning process, but I I know why people want to do an all-in-one. I'm doing one, like I said, but it's still not something I'd actually recommend just because of the problems we keep seeing and I've had myself. Um, but since that's where we're at and that's what you have, Ray, would you say, I mean,
What I'd recommend to
yeah,
people that do have all-in-ones, and especially if they have problems, don't um, don't depend on that skimmer because first of all, even if it's working perfect, it's not going to work well enough.
Mhm.
So find a way to put a small reactor in and put carbon in the reactor. The
Ah,
carbon will remove dissolved organics, and as a matter of fact, there's a couple, or at least one, uh, dissolved organic that skimmers don't remove. And I
right,
don't understand the wherewithal on that,
right.
but Randy Holmes Farley, um, a renowned chemist, has stated that the skimmers will not remove every dissolved organics. They will remove most, but carbon will remove the ones that the skimmer doesn't do.
So you're suggesting a carbon reactor. I'm curious if you don't know, it's okay, Ray, because I will go and find out. But do you know if things like Purigen and Aquachar do those work in the same way, or does it have to be carbon?
I can't say anything about that because I've
I'll
never
find
ever.
I'm pretty sure that Purigen, Cheryl has said before that she uses the Purigen in that like equal. But I will check with her and I will check with Brian or Robert King on the char that goes into the char chamber. So we'll find out on that. But you said a reactor. I know there are reactors for the all-in-one, Danielle. So I would definitely listen to Ray. I didn't even think of that. And so I'm so glad he brought it up. But in addition to the skimmer and trying to get it to work, get that. What about a hang on back skimmer, Ray, or is that just never work?
Hang on back ones. I don't think you're going to find one that's rated high enough. You're
Yeah.
wanting 3 or 4 times at a minimum,
Yep.
rated for 3 or 4 times the tank volume. And then another thing to comment here, Bonnie is asking about a UV sterilizer. With seahorses, the bacteria that cause the problem, uh, they're benthic, not pelagic. and they
Mm,
do not go through a UV sterilizer. If you want to use a UV sterilizer, put it on a fry tank.
gotcha.
And it can have some people have reported good results that way with fry, but it's not going to help out almost exclusively the diseases that seahorses are going to get.
So real quick, guys, again, with the just making sure everybody's on the same page. When he says benthic versus pelagic, it's whether or not they swim through the water or stay like on the surfaces or on the bottom. So that's what he was saying, is that those type of bacteria don't ever get to go through the UV sterilizer, right? And I use a UV sterilizer on my all-in-one, but I use it more for, like algae. I don't have algae in the tank now, but sometimes I get little tufts. And so, I'll know I need to replace that bulb or whatever. But I don't use it for prevention the way that we're talking about here. So I would definitely say work on the skimmer, try to get a reactor in which you can put carbon or one of these other products if we find out they work. What else, Ray?
No, I got disrupted here. One of the dogs went out the doggy door, and I got a skunk out there.
Uh
I just had to make sure she wasn't going to chase the skunk.
oh. Yeah, you don't want to deal with that.
Well,
One,
Skylar used to chase them all the time. Every single year, except for his last year, he would chase and get sprayed by skunk.
oh
But the
no,
problem with him is he'd get sprayed and he still keep going after them. He wouldn't stop.
Oh no.
Lord. Oh my. Well,
I
I'm
had a
And
sorry.
dog that liked the smell. Well, it looks like Danielle has to go.
Well,
yeah,
but she may
But
she may come back later, or we may comment in the group or something. Ray, one thing I did want to ask, because when I treated my seahorses for a bacterial infection, I used Furon 2 and triple sulfa, and I've heard from others that you can't really get those products anymore. So, are we recommending kanamycin, or what? Does it depend?
kanamycin is another one that works.
Okay,
So I'm not sure. Like up here, we can't get anything.
right,
So at least you have access to some treatments down there.
right.
But we haven't been able to get meds here now. I can't be sure now. 7 or 8 years now.
Mm, so
Uh,
crazy. And then we
well,
find,
they're trying to protect people.
sure.
The more these treatments get into our waste treatment facilities, the more the bugs become resistant,
super
and that
bugs,
affects
yeah.
the human part of it.
Yep. No, I get it. It's just not as easy to treat a sick seahorse anymore, is all I'm trying to say. But many have proven that just a hospital tank with extremely clean water and rapid water changes, sometimes it'll work. You just never know.
Well, it's worked for me since I haven't been able to get it. It hasn't worked every time,
Hmm.
but it has made a difference.
Sure.
I've had, uh, I guess, I can think of right now in the last maybe 5 or 6 years, 3 specific times where I put a seahorse into the hospital tank, and the bacterial infections were quite obvious. And while it took a long time to reverse and change, they did heal.
That's awesome.
The biggest thing is don't expect it to heal in a hurry. So
Hmm.
you're doing these 50% water changes all the time, every other day, and you're getting a little tired of it and you're not seeing any change, but that's normal. It took a long time to get to the point where you could see it, but it was in process even before you could see it.
Yep.
Now, the same thing is going to happen the other way. Trying to get it to heal, it's going to take a long time again. So don't expect it to necessarily be a week or 2 weeks. And just think about some of the wounds that you get. There are areas of the body that can heal fairly fast, and then there are areas of the body that heal very slow. And just accept the fact that it may always be that you have a seahorse, that the wound is always going to be in that slow area rather than a fast area.
Sure. Good points. Good points. All right. Well, Danielle did have to go, but I think that the Ray's advice helped her. I think, and I'm glad that her other seahorses aren't currently sick. So hopefully the huge water change and lowering the temp will help. I just feel terrible when somebody does lose a seahorse. I have my seahorse feeder, a very good friend who's feeding my seahorses every day while I'm on this wonderful rainy vacation. And she like FaceTimes me, like so I can say hi to my seahorse. It's pretty ridiculous. Ray would really love it. Ray would love it, but
What's
it's
FaceTime?
you know,
It's like this.
yeah, it's like this where you call each other, but it's video.
Yeah.
Video meeting.
Oh, like you can do that on Messenger.
Yes.
Yes, that's called FaceTime. Yeah.
Yeah. It's if you have iPhones, it's FaceTime.
Mhm.
But anyway, but I'm glad that Holly, Holly, I appreciate you starting this and running this while I was trying to get in here. And Ray, I appreciate you coming in at the end to really knock it out of the park. But Holly, I appreciate you running it and trying to help
No
her,
problem.
even though we were,
When I
slack.
saw that post that you were going to not be starting till 9, I figured, well, I should be able to get in on this after the hockey game's over. Well, the
Perfect.
hockey game
Yeah,
ended up
you
going
did.
longer than they wanted because it went into overtime, and then went past overtime, went into a shootout.
That's
So
all right. So did we.
Right. But yeah, so anyways, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. Did anybody have anything else? Because I do have to get up really early. I wanted to do Wine Wednesday on the ocean in the sand with you guys seeing the beautiful water, and it's just a mess here. It's cold and rainy. But anyways, but no, so I got to get up early, but I want to make sure everybody's questions were answered. And again, thank you, Holly, for sharing so much before we got going. But
maybe if she has any further problems, maybe she can start a new thread.
yeah,
And with the new information,
right.
and we can respond to that on Facebook when she posts at that time. And I'll
Yep.
make a point then of watching it with a little bit special interest in it this time.
There you go, Danny.
I didn't get in on it last time because I just figured, well, sometimes too many cooks.
In the kitchen. Yep, I got
Yeah.
you. But you got Ray especially looking, so definitely post and let us know. Give us an update. Tell us what's going on, and really, really hoping to have better luck with the rest.
Everybody's still on here. If you have to take videos or pictures or something, please do it with a white light.
Turn on the blue.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's real. That's a real request because we can see so much more. Like, we're talking about how the seahorse is white, and you can't tell if it's disrupted skin or if it's just. I mean, some seahorses will change colors. It's just
Yeah, there's
easy.
a difference. There's
It's a
difference.
lot harder when you're 80 and trying to see these things.
True, that too.
Young aren't the same.
That too. But all right, thank you. Hey Zen, thanks for sharing the Fish Fam link. Absolutely. And I guess, guys, Ray, you came in. Now I'm kicking you out. You gave us the info, and now we're gonna go.
Yeah.
But everybody have a great night. I will be back I'll be back by Sunday. So I'll definitely be here on time Wednesday. And yeah, happy Wine Wednesday, everybody. Let's do our cheers.
Right, all.
Cheers.